Today, the central bank meets regularly to determine the interest rates for the banking industry. So my question is, why are microfinance banks lending at an average of 3 to sometimes 50% per month in the country?
Aside from credit being too expensive, there's the issue of there's the issue of dwindling consumer demand, and it's it's like a vicious circle. Household can access credit at a lower interest rate.
The collateral that they are asking, we poor like this, it is not easy to go and get magistrate law court, to go and go doctor, to go and bring so many things that they will ask you that you cannot avoid it. They are ready to give you money, but they will ask you what you cannot avoid. That is why I don't normally go to say I want to borrow or to borrow money from any bank or anything like that.
I think the experience I had with one of the fintech, I would not like to mention the name, one of the fintech. Now, I discovered that actually I did not end up, doing anything with them, doing any transaction with them. But actually, what really pissed me off about them is that there's a habit of sending text message to all the contacts in the phone. When you download their app, they will have access, one way or the other, you will give them access to all the contacts in your phone, on your phone. Now, the habit of sending messages to all the contacts, that's one of the things that, pissed me off.
So my experience about loan is, there was a time I collect loan, like 5,000 naira loan. And the time they give me, when the time lapses and I didn't pay on time, they started calling me, sending me message, sending me mails still. And before they start sending me message, they start adding some charges on the loan, on the 5,000 naira loan I collected. They start adding like maybe 25 kobo or 28 kobo every day till when I pay back the loan. So that's just my own experience. And the calls, they do call and send message almost every day. They will make sure you pay their money. So that's my own personal experience.
I do have a friend who got a loan from, I don't know, probably these loan sharks and the likes, but I figured out that I got to a stage that when the loan has elapses, the guy had to start running. He was getting threat messages as the like threats, like death threats and a lot of threats and the like. So I just felt like that was going way too far for issues like that. You don't need to threaten somebody about life stuff. And what if the person now actually passed on? Then they will be like, okay, he got, if you want to investigate issues like this, you will see, when I see the threat messages and the likes like that, it's not a very good thing.
So I think what we need to do is that if we want to create a credit economy like you find in the West, we just have to lower the cost of accessing it. It is very, very important. We have to lower the cost of accessing it, because if it is too expensive, the fall to be high. The banks, they have huge portfolio of non-performing loans. You understand? And for consumer credit, you have a whole lot of defaults because people can't pay. You understand what I'm saying? People can't pay. They access it. Paying back becomes an issue. So there's a need to have a robust approach to credit in Nigeria.
Hello everyone, welcome to the program. I am Gabriel Jude from Lagos, Nigeria. Access to affordable credit remains one of Nigeria's most significant economic challenges. While more than 64% of Nigerians adults are now financially included, recent research shows that only about 6% access formal credit. leaving millions of households, entrepreneurs, and small businesses without financing needed to scale. Today, I'm being joined by Mr. Sola Bickersteth, Group Director, FIC Professionals Network PLC, to examine why these gaps persist, what it means for the economy, where the opportunity lies to build a more inclusive credit system. Thank you for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Now, right, let's begin with the data from IFINA, which is their report on access to financial service survey 2023, which talk about we have 64% of Nigerians adults who are financially included. But we also seen that the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, that is Credico, indicated that only around 6% of Nigerians, has access to formal credit. Now, with this development and with this report that we have seen, why has this affordability and access to credit persist? What have been the limitations that we've seen?
You've asked a thesis question, but let's start from the fundamentals. You said 6% formal credit, but that means that there is also 80% informal credit. So what we should do is to focus on the informal. And we can say, well, let's just formalize all the informal credit and we will suddenly have 86% formal credit. So if you look at the average African community, not even just Nigeria, they have things that are called Ajo and Co, contribution and all of that. But if you go to the Central Bank of Nigeria, they do not have any department that caters for 80% of this so-called informal sector. I'm talking specifically about what is called credit unions internationally. So we should formalize credit union. We should create rules around the operation of what we call contributions locally. And once that is done, a lot of things will take care of itself, by default. If we go back to Central Bank of Nigeria, Central Bank has one department that, supervises what they call other financial institutions. Inside that other financial institutions, we've just spoken about cooperatives. We're also talking about microfinance banks. We're also talking about non-bank financial institutions. There are about 4,000 non-bank financial institutions in Nigeria. There are about 1,000 microfinance banks in Nigeria. But guess what? To your other question about affordability. Today, the central bank meets regularly to determine the interest rates for the banking industry. So my question is, why are microfinance banks lending at an average of 3 to sometimes 50% per month in the country? Are they outside that regulation? So it is CBN's refusal to recognize that, look, majority of Nigerians are in the so-called informal sector. They are being serviced by microfinance banks, non-bank financial institutions, and cooperatives, more or less. But they are not being regulated. So because of that, the affordability question is off the table. And interestingly enough, people are now saying that some of the prominent microfinance institutions, MoneyPoint, OPay, and Co, are some of the biggest lenders in the country. They are licensed. Why are they not sitting in the bankers committee? Why are they being allowed to operate illegally? Because if CBN says everybody stays around 28% and they are doing 120%, then we should go back to CBN and say these guys are openly committing crime. And you are looking the other way because you have refused to recognize the informal.
It's not inclusion.
So those are the foundational issues. Once we address those foundational issues, in terms of affordability, credit is not a personal creation. credit is a system. So by an extension of what CBN is doing, Nigeria needs a credit system. A credit system that guides identity. So let's give an example. I need to buy milk down the road. I go to my neighborhood shop and I say, oh, can I buy milk? Give it to me on credit. Because that neighborhood shop knows me and knows that I cannot run away with their money, they give it to me. Credit has just happened. But Nigerian system does not recognize what is happening all over the country on a daily basis. Now, what we now need is to create a scheme around the credit system. It is not cash, don't forget. It is simply an extension of cash. And if we're able to create that scheme, then, a lot of these fundamentals will be taken care of.
So you talk about banking, you talk about microfinance banks, and that would lead us to a report by International Finance Corporation, which estimate that MSME account for 96 to 97% in businesses in Nigeria, and contribute to the highest amount of rates of GDP. Now, the World Bank also, in their survey, Enterprise Survey 2025, says 94.8% of Nigerian businesses have bank accounts, but only 20.2%, have access to bank loans. 42% are considered partially credit constrained. Now, why does we have these issues, and then the banking system accessibility and transaction couldn't translate to access to credit?
So one of the good news that has happened is that the federal government has created the National Credit Guarantee Company, which we advocated for 2 years ago. So we're happy they are listening. However, it is a National Credit Guarantee Company. It is not a private credit guarantee company. So by default, what we should have is a National Credit Guarantee Fund. And all the monies that government is throwing around, the First Lady went to give some people 100 million. Instead of giving them the 100 million, they should put it into a guarantee fund and say, look, these people, give them 1 million. We will guarantee it with this amount. So the purpose of guarantee is to make it possible that every Nigerian business that is compliant, has registered for tax, have their national ID, their BVN, all the necessary things, their company registration done, should automatically be entitled. If you take international standards, we'll average it at $35,000.
Sorry to cut you. Are you saying that the initiative that we've seen from the federal government, even to MSMEs, small businesses and households, are not done properly, are not regulated, they are not, there is no modus operandi?
Self-limiting. I'll tell a side story. So if you take 2 goldfish, you put one in a small bowl and you put one in a river, same fish, same genes. That's goldfish will never grow beyond that bowl. But the brother or sister that is put in a river will grow 20 times the size of that. So we are self-limiting ourselves. We created a national credit guarantee and we're provided for it to cover for just 1,000 Nigerians out of 200 million. What we need is a national credit guarantee fund passed by law, which says that every Nigerian 18 years and above has automatic access to credit for personal development up to $35,000. It is after the $35,000 that you can now start going to commercial banks because you want to build 6-story building, you want to build a factory and all of that. But most Nigerians don't need more than just money to do Uber. 50 million. And they don't need a business plan. It should be automatic credit. A lot of people have houses in their villages. Those houses are valueless. But by default, those houses should automatically qualify them for mortgage credit. So, but we need a system that will recognize the land, that will recognize the compliance of those businesses and make access to credit systemic and not personal.
Let's talk about the cost, of returns. Let's say, so you have access to credit. What are the, the percentage, the rate, and because I have had situations with, especially you talked about the Uber drivers, and then when you look at Lagos State, for example, there are some kind of system which accommodate people coming for vehicles. You use it for your Uber, and then a lot of issues are raised that the amount is so high. Will this solve the problem that we have currently to build households, have access to finance and livelihood?
Remember where we started from. So you've given an example. There are some private companies that, buy vehicles and they give it as credit and all of that. But the law does not recognize them. So because of that, they can behave as they wish. Just like the law is not recognizing microfinance banks as actual banks. Because there's that micro is the self-limitation that we're giving to ourselves. We should, if we have the opportunity, change all microfinance banks to SME, the SME banks. There should be opportunity for growth. You should be able to start from, frying akara by the roadside to growing to acquire a 3-story building that you are exporting akara to the rest of Africa. But if you don't create that growth path, it is the goldfish thing I told you. It's self-limiting. So we're self-limiting ourselves by not recognizing the actual activity going on, by not regulating it, by allowing people to give out credit at unbelievable rates. And then there are no options. There's nobody, controlling any of these activities.
So regulation is the issue. Right. So I want us to talk about the connectivity. Talk about, we've been talking about Credit Co, which was launched by federal government, and so we have some integrations in the place of NIMS identity. We have open banking by the CBN. We have data exchange by NITDA and Afrigo payment, rail, to unlock sustainable and secure credit system for every citizen. So how can this come to play? I mean, the interconnectivity, the integration, the modus operandi, how can this work out to have access to credit for us?
I will give this current regime the credit that they have put a lot of fundamentals in place. The NIMC Act 2026, which was, released recently, the credit core, and so many. They're even about to launch a digital economy law for Nigeria. So it's great. They've put a lot of fundamentals in place. Now we need to do the putting together, more or less, and the correction here and there. I will start with ownership. Why is Central Bank of Nigeria 100% owned by government?
It shouldn't be.
We need to separate government institutions from public institutions. Now, I'll give you an example. One of the biggest success stories out of Nigeria in the past 10 years is a company called Nigeria Interbank Settlement Scheme, PLC. It is 5% owned by Central Bank. That is why it is successful. Central Bank is the chairman, but that is why it is successful. If we now want to copy that success, we will go back to the National Credit Guarantee Company and we will not make it a government institution. We will make it a public institution. Government should just own 25% and allow others to come and play and allow the industry to own the credit guarantee scheme so that we can make automatic access to credit everywhere and not by signing individual MOUs.
Who should now regulate?
Credit Core is not a regulator. Credit Core, just like NIBS, is an operator. It's a public operator, just like the stock exchange. It's not an individually owned organization. They are owned by both the government and the private sector. So they must be controlled by both government and private. So once ownership structure changes, Credit Corp should not be a government institution. It is 100% owned by government. It should be owned by the industry, so that all of us can come together and create a credit system that works for Nigeria. Otherwise, they are struggling. NCGC is struggling. Credit Corp is struggling. Afrigo is a little there. They are owned by the banks, but they are owned only by the commercial banks. How about the 4,000 credit unions, cooperatives in Nigeria, or non-bank institutions? How about the 1,000? They should also be shareholders, so that all of them can sit down and manage the credit scheme for Nigeria. Just like NIBS, it is a payment system. So now we need to go back, NCGC and Credit Corp, to set up the credit system and the credit guarantee system, starting with ownership. That's a wish to have. But in the absence of that, we will continue to collaborate with them so that we can set up a system that works.
Sir, so do you think that financial institutions are becoming increasingly risk averse, or maybe many of business simply are unable to satisfy lending requirement?
We're back to it again. So what is a financial institution in Nigeria? Is it a credit union? Is it a cooperative? Is it a non-bank microfinance bank? Is it a microfinance bank? Or is it a commercial bank? We tend to just limit our focus on commercial banks. Commercial banks are for the minority who want to go beyond the base. There are just about maybe 30 commercial banks in Nigeria. These other 4,000 people that are the ones that are servicing the actual Nigerians, they're the ones that they are not risk averse, but they are getting away with blue mother. Remember what we said? Microfinance institutions, let me not mention them. Fintechs are lending at 15% a month in this Nigeria because nobody is regulating them, but they are smiling to the bank. And on paper, they're now being said that they are bigger than a lot of commercial banks. So we should stop focusing on commercial banks. We should start focusing on the real players in the economy.
I'll still come to the issue of requirement for lending, access to credit. But let's look at something interesting. So according to the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, which says that, of course, we talked about fintechs, which Nigeria happens to be one of those countries that have the rapid growth of fintech digital payment system. But NIBSS, electronic payment transactions, they say it has continued to grow significantly from 2025 to 2026. Now that we're still talking about driven mobile banking, fintechs, and all of that. But yet we have a lot of issues with rural communities accessing all of this. When you go to, not everyone is in tune with fintechs. People still use boxes, to do savings and all of that. What is FIC doing in order to close this gap?
Thank you. Beautiful question. Well, okay, so awareness is one part of it. But when you are busy building, digging holes and all that, it is when you do the finishing work and you are, plastering the house and painting, that is when you will tell people, my house is almost complete. So we have been doing a lot of foundation digging. But essentially, it is to create a network across Nigeria where even if you're in a village, you will have an individual who has the professional competence to guide you to gain access to affordable finance, to credit, to mortgage, to capital markets. And we have spread out Nigeria. We technically, aligning with the Nigeria's financial inclusion strategy, is one of such experts per 1,000 Nigerians. So for us 210,000 of such experts are needed in every village, in every nook and cranny of the country. And that is our mission, to get them professionally trained, to create a new profession. We call them money advisors. Technically, you can call them economic and financial inclusion experts. But, they will do training and certification with Chartered Institute of Bankers, with National Institute of Credit Administrators, with Lagos Business School and Kaduna Business School, with ICANN, all the professional bodies, so that they have the professional competence to be able to sit in the village and help the rural community people to access finance in a sustainable manner.
So how do you intend to do all of this? How do you do? Because I'm much more interested in this issue of credit, accessing credit. So when we talk about MSME in Nigeria, so you hear people say that it's not easy to do business in Nigeria, and then also a lot of misinformation. People lack awareness. There are no proper enlightenment. How can we be able to close this gap, and especially speak to the purpose of why do we need credit for ease of business?
So credit is a lifeblood. It is not supposed to be optional. The moment you register a business, you are supposed to automatically have access to credit. So if the National Credit Guarantee Company gets it right, we should have a base. I have said it should be, by Nigeria today, 50 million, which covers most Nigeria. So by the way, their carousel does not need 50,000. They need access to 50 million credit so that they can grow from, the small provision, and they need to operate with minimum standards. The other problem we have as a country is the absence of standards. We should ban people using firewood to fry akara. Sorry, I'm going back to that because that's a popular conversation of the day. We should require them to have gas burners. We should give them permits to stay properly. They cannot be by the roadside. That's illegal. They should get the local government to give them a permit. They should build a decent kiosk. Why are we insisting that such a business that can make Nigeria, put Nigeria on the global map, that can bring people to come to Nigeria, to come and taste our akara? We are now, because we have set very low standards for ourselves, and that's why there's poverty everywhere, by the way. We have set very low standards. That is why we are commonizing all these small things, and that is what we are trying to correct. I'll answer it from this angle. There are three things that are important to most of us in the world: your health, God, and money. For God, there's no village in Nigeria you will get to. Usually the biggest structure is the mosque, the church, and where applicable, the traditional shrine. So we have built a national network of, access to God, if you like. And it's a booming business. For health, it's the same thing. There is no village you will get to. There will be a chemist, as we call them. There will be a traditional, healer, and, people that sell the whatever. But when it comes to money, if I'm in the village, where do I go? Because that is his thought. Even for many people, money is more important than those things. And that is the ecosystem that we are building. So we are creating professional training for individuals who will now say, oh, I can build a career as a money advisor. People can come to me just like they go to priests and say, oh, I have money problem, please help me. And they can guide them accordingly. So that is like the starting point of that infrastructure that we need to put in place, so that, like you rightly said, they can say, no, don't take that facility. It's going to be too expensive for you. Go for this facility because this is the one that is sustainable. So the absence of that expert advice right down to the community is the first gap that FIC Professionals Network is working very hard to break.
Do you think the government is interested in building the MSME?
when the current president was inaugurated, he made an interesting statement. He said, let the poor breathe. And he said that, look, we should have credit in Nigeria. So he has declared it as one of his campaign promises. And that's why he has gone ahead to approve the National Credit Guarantee Company, the Credit Core Company of Nigeria, the NIMC Act. So he has taken steps to see what can be done.
Is that why we see initiative up and down?
Yes. What is missing is a coordination, a central coordination of all the different initiatives that government is trying to do. That is on one side. On the second side is recognition. Why are we not having informal sector conference 3.0? Why are we not inviting all the iyalojas and the market women all over the place? Why are we not bringing people from Aba who have a financing system that has been studied by Harvard? Why are we not bringing them into the room? Forget about talking about them. You can't shave a man's head behind his back. We should be having informal sector 3.0. And nobody should be wearing tie and
suits and agbada.
They should be coming there with Babariga and Asho Okay. Because that is them. That is the real Nigeria for you. And I promise you, when you bring all of them to the room, they will give you wisdom that you will not believe. They've been running credit systems forever. We're the ones who have refused to recognize it, to institutionalize it, to structure it, and allow it to grow to an enviable system that the rest of the world can come and copy.
Right. This makes a lot of sense because I am very, very optimistic that this will go a long way. But now, looking ahead over the, let's say, the next 5 years, what measurable indicators should Nigeria, use to assess whether some of these reforms, like the form of credit code, bring access to credit palatable and affordable?
That's a brilliant question. Measurable. Every Nigerian, 100%, from the age of 18 years, that is up to an adult, should be able to gain access to credit. Emphasis, not cash. Credit for personal development. From, as at today, if you use the exchange rate, the equivalent of $35,000, which is 50 million. So every Nigerian from 18 years should be able to gain access to 50 million naira worth of credit for their personal development. That is what we should be measuring, not the number of bank accounts that have been opened. If a young 18-year-old decides that I want to go and start a car hailing business, they should not need a business plan. They should not be exploited. They should simply be able to provide their national identity number along with other documentation, and automatically, which will be the job of the National Credit Guarantee Fund, they should be able to gain access to it. If a young person decides that, you know what, I don't want to go to university, I want to start a trading business, they should not need a business plan. And of course, if the Iyakara, the daughter, now decides that, you know what, my mother took me to school selling akara by the roadside. I want to take that akara to the rest of the world. They don't need a business plan. They grew up in it. They should be able to access 50 million that they will use to buy mobile vehicles, buy gas, buy, standard equipment that they can take to New York and park by the roadside in New York and sell akara from Nigeria to the world. Those are the measurable things. If we can get to that point, not 1,000 Nigerians, not 500 Nigerians, not 10,000. Every adult, I don't know what that population will be. We are working with 220 million, so maybe 100 million, because the younger ones are still the higher population. So 100 million Nigerians having automatic systemic access to 50 million naira in credit to grow their life and their aspirations. That will be the measure that we should be aiming and targeting for as a country.
Before I let you go, I saw something on Instagram by, Sheyi Tinubu, which was talking about register your business with CAC and all of those things, put your NIN, and in fact, he'll be delivered, you get your certificate. Then I begin to ask myself, what next? If I register, and I tried it, so we talked about names, national identification number and all of that. I input mine, the same portal, and it was showing error. And then peradventure, I got the certificate. What next? So I want to ask you, what is your submission? And let me ask you also, what next?
Yes, that's why we exist as a company. We are FIC Professionals Network. We exist so that we can guide people on the what next that you are asking. What do they need to do to formalize their operations? Because technically, informality is illegality, technically. What do they need to do to grow from accessing 50,000 from government, which by the way, 100,000, which we're about to start disbursing, to 50 million in 3 years' time? They need guidance. And it is the professionals on the boat, we call them money advisors, who will be on ground, who will be guiding them on the next steps that they will take to grow and access all these things that they keep hearing on TV.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. Indeed, it was a robust conversation. Mr. Sola Bickersteth, Group Director, FIC Professionals Network, PLC, for coming and giving us these great insights and expertise from the angle of financial inclusion. Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
It's my honor. I apologize, I'm not wearing tie and suit. I represent the informal sector, and we exist to formalize the informal.
Thank you so much. I think that we need to integrate. It's much more important. We're talking about building the economy, $1 trillion economy. We should integrate MSME. Very important, and it's very crucial. Let's get them there, pick them from the street, like we talked about, having a structure where they can be integrated and gain access to credit. That will be all for WebTV Focus program today. For more information on finance, the banking, market, and economy, please visit the Proshare website, WebTV, YouTube, and follow our social media platform display on the screen. Thank you everyone for watching. I am Gabriel Jude. Bye for now.